For the first time since 2006, the Edmonton Oilers are going to the Stanley Cup Final. Let's get to work, Oilers fans.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Monday edition of Locked On Oilers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Man, where to even begin? So we're going to bounce around. This will not be the most coherent episode because there is so much to cover. We'll start in the outset, the most important thing. The Oilers are advancing, what it all means, contextualizing it, the history, the aura of the organization, the je ne sais quoi about why this is so important and what it all means. The second segment, we'll talk about the actual game itself, what worked for them tonight. Stuart Skinner, we commend you. We appreciate you. We thank you for your service. Third segment, we'll begin to foray looking ahead. But tonight's episode, this is a celebration. You heard me say it when the Oilers qualified to get here by beating the Canucks in a Game 7. Opportunities like this don't come around every day. No matter how well built of a team you are, there are plenty of great teams that never make it this far. There are plenty of great teams that don't even make the conference final. Any given year, there are 3 or 4 teams in each conference that make the playoffs that probably have a good chance of making the conference final, but don't. This year, I would still say, even though both series ended in 6 games, this is the best conference final of recent memory. I cannot believe how close these games were. I can't believe how tight this series between Dallas and Edmonton was. There was just not a lot of room. There was not a lot of goal scoring. There was not a lot of opportunity. But when it came down to it, the Oilers got the bounces. And the statistician math part of my brain is saying, well, yes, they got variance. They got positive variance. They were on the right side of some coin flips. But the other half of my brain is saying the best player in the world put his team on his back, word to Greg Jennings, and said, we're not losing. I will do everything in my power to get us over this finish line because I have never been here before and I don't know if I'm ever going to be here again. That's why this matters so much. This is a validation of the Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl project. It was not an assurance that the Oilers would ever get here. You can look at a number of teams across the league. You can talk about the Leafs. You can talk about the Rangers. You can talk about the Hurricanes. You can talk about the Lightning of last decade. You can talk about the Bruins for a lot of the last decade. There are a lot of really good teams that get to the playoffs consistently, and they lose a game in overtime in the first round, and they get to a Game 7, and they lose on an empty net goal that ends their season. There are a lot of teams who lose a guy or two to injury during the course of a season, and they don't come back in time for the playoffs, or when they do, they're at a reduced capacity and they're not able to make it happen. So on the outset, just getting to a conference final was something. To beat what most considered, and I can put my hand up and say, I thought the Stars were the best team in the NHL during the regular season. They did not have the best record. That would be the Rangers, who also eliminated. But I would think I thought coming into this series, the Stars were going to win. And that if the Oilers were going to win, it was going to take something a little special. And the Oilers did get something a little bit special. They got 2 truly great performances from Stuart Skinner in game number 5 and game number 6. That alone made a real difference in this series. It was not entirely incumbent upon the team's best players to carry the load. I think we can really give a lot of credit to the Oilers defense. The fact that Chris Knoblauch once again found the right buttons to push and get the desired results is a massive feather in his cap. Just understanding what his team needed and at what time, you cannot replace that value for this team that started where it did back in November when they fired Jay Woodcroft. to be here, to make the Stanley Cup Final, to upset the Stars and the Canucks, mind you. The Canucks did win the Pacific Division. I know the Oilers and Canucks were very close in the standings and frankly very close in their series, but that was an upset. The Canucks were slight favorites. They had home ice advantage. That matters. Upsetting the Stars, who many, me included, thought were the best team in the West, one of the best, if not the best team in the entire league. Deep roster, future Vezina caliber goalie and Jake Ottinger. Stuart Skinner outplayed Jake Ottinger in this series. I cannot believe I'm saying that out loud on a broadcast that's going to be distributed to the world, but Stuart Skinner outplayed Jake Ottinger, and we're going to talk about about Game 6 itself in the next segment, so I don't want to step on that too much, but the recipe for the Oilers was straightforward. Keep it close at 5-on-5, passable goaltending, elite special teams. The Oilers power play had a hard time for the first time in these playoffs in this series. Dallas is a really good team. You tip your cap where you have to. You acknowledge Dallas is a really good team. You don't get to the Stanley Cup Final without beating really good teams. And this take is something I've been workshopping, so it might not come out as good as I think it sounds in my head, but you don't win the Stanley Cup without beating teams that also could win the Stanley Cup. And that's not in like the abstract. Anybody can win the Stanley Cup when they qualify. The Washington Capitals could not have won the Stanley Cup. The New York Islanders could not have won the Stanley Cup. The Nashville Predators could not have won the Stanley Cup. The Dallas Stars, they could have won the Stanley Cup. If the Canucks had Thatcher Demko, which was close to happening from what we understand, they could have won the Stanley Cup. Give the Oilers credit. I'm sure there are some Canuck fans hate watching this. That wasn't a coincidence in the last round that the videos with the highest views on YouTube were also the ones the Canucks won because they wanted their Schadenfreude, which as a sports fan, that's your right. But the Canucks were very good this year. The Stars were very good this year. The Oilers were better. That doesn't erase the regular season results. You would always want to be as good a team as you can be in the regular season, but the key, as we've all known for quite a while now, is not just to be a good regular season team. It is that you want to hit your stride as the playoffs get going. You want to face some adversity during your regular season so that when you face adversity in the postseason, you're prepared for it. There are teams who don't face a ton of adversity in their regular season. I think the Bruins last year, I think the Rangers this year, you run into a situation in that the first time you get really punched in the mouth by a team that can hang with you, you look around a little disheveled like the Mr. Krabs meme, Mr. Krabs sitting at the pretty patty table meme, where what happened, what's wrong? And real quick, they got you out of there. Energy shifts in a playoff series just like that, and kudos to the Edmonton Oilers for getting over the hump. The job is not finished, to quote the late, great Kobe Bryant. The job is not finished. The Oilers did not come into the season saying, let's make the Stanley Cup Final and whatever happens, happens. I am telling you, as somebody who's got a firm grasp on how hard it is to get here, savor this. No matter what, you are going to talk about this Oilers season probably for the rest of your life, regardless of what happens against the Panthers. We are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to diagnose how the Oilers finally got over the hump, closed the door, put away the Dallas Stars, made the Stanley Cup Final. So stick around. Coming up next on Locked On Oilers. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thank you to everybody who is making Locked On Oilers a part of your day, whether it's first thing in the morning when you wake up, on the way to work, on the way to school, at the gym, or at the end of your day on the way home. Thank you for taking the time. You guys have made this journey just as exciting for me as somebody who my connection to the Oilers is through individuals. I've lived in awe of Connor McDavid since I first saw his Erie tape. I have long felt Leon Draisaitl did not get the recognition he deserved. And Evan Bouchard's one of my guys. I have been pounding the table that he was going to break through when he finally got the opportunity. And I'm very happy for him as an individual and as somebody who has watched a lot of really good offensive defensemen get pigeonholed by organizations who didn't have appreciation for the talent they had. Now, there are going to be people in the stats community and the content community who cannot think of original things to talk about, who cannot creatively and articulately describe what happened in this game, who are going to look at the shots on goal and say, the Oilers got lucky. The Oilers got the bounces. They got lucky. If Dallas found another goal, they would have lost in overtime, and then Dallas would have won Game 7. That's what the Canucks fans were saying. Why do you care if you beat us? You're not going to beat Dallas. That's what the Canucks fans were saying 2 weeks ago before this series started. Why do you care? You're not going to beat Dallas. Why do you care so much about what's going to happen? This is why you play the games. You can beat a team with more talent than you. I don't think it's a hot take to say Dallas is a deeper roster, but Edmonton's high-end players made the difference in this series, and that's what swung this game. Connor McDavid's goal to open the scoring at 1-0 is one of the most remarkable plays I have ever seen in watching professional hockey. I can't say it's the best goal I've ever seen McDavid score. I have seen him score more incredible ones where he's gone through more people. But to do it in that situation, at that point in the game, with these stakes, within the context of this game, the confidence in your own ability to make that happen is incalculable. There might not be another person on this entire planet of more than 8 billion people who can make that play. There's maybe one or two guys in this league. Maybe Nathan McKinnon can do that. Maybe Austin Matthews can do that. And I still think it's really only Connor. And to have your best player command that responsibility and demand it, frankly, Connor himself has said the goal is Stanley Cup or bust. And you saw that in the way he opened this game. He had a rocket ship on his back those first few shifts. To score that goal, to set the tone, to get the crowd into it, to get his team into it when we know how much better Stuart Skinner is with a lead as opposed to playing from behind or in a tie game. Invaluable. It gave the Oilers time to unfurl the game. You talk about opening a present, setting aside the wrapping and opening the box and going through the tissue paper, sifting through the game, setting it all up, figuring out what are we going to need to do. And the concept, we need the casuals, and this includes people like Eddie Olczyk and Brian Boucher, who they understand scoring chances, but they don't understand game context. Yes, the Stars dramatically outshot the Oilers, 31-10, 31-11, depending on whose official count you want to look at for shots on goal. The scoring chances even more lopsided. Why is that? to use the Brian Windhorst meme, if you're on NBA Twitter or familiar with that, why is that? Why would they do that? The Oilers had a 2-0 lead. They stopped pressing for offense. They were not taking chances defensively to create more offense. They were not interested in trying to extend their lead. Is that a risky proposition? Yes. Did it backfire against them earlier in this very series? Yes. Tonight, they were able to make it work. And As the game went along, Dallas began to create better offense, not necessarily more, but better. They were able to cut towards the middle a little bit more, sweep some jam plays. They did eventually get on the board later in the game in the third period, but for long stretches of this game, Edmonton had that middle of the ice on lock and said, okay, shoot, we dare you. And Dallas was content to take a shot from the point, take a shot from the circles, take a shot from the half wall, and Skinner saves it. It gets blocked. It doesn't even get to the net. That's the sign of a desperate team. When someone starts to fling pucks on the net from any direction, especially if the defensemen start to do it, that's when you know a team is starting to sweat. Dallas started to sweat early in this game. 2-0 is not a lot, and I can be honest with you. I wasn't sure 2-1 was going to stand in this game. I was not sure the Oilers were going to be able to make 2-1 work as a final score. I felt Dallas had a really good shot there down the backstretch of tying it at 2 because of the volume, not necessarily the quality. Sure, Dallas got a few looks close to the net, a couple jams, but you don't want to live in your own end like that. There's plenty of time to talk about what that would look like against Florida, believe me. If you're watching on YouTube, yeah. I know how it goes if Florida lives in your own end for entire periods at a time. You don't want to do it. But that's not what tonight's about. People who are too eager to rush forward, they're not truly appreciating these things. I said it at the end of the last segment, and I'm going to reiterate it now. This is a game you will talk about the rest of your life. To win this game, to have Stuart Skinner, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman be the heroes of this game, you will talk about that the rest of your life, regardless of what happens the rest of this playoff run in the next round. You will talk about this series and this game 6 for the rest of your life, the rest of your natural born life. You will talk about Connor McDavid putting the team on his back and saying, we're not losing this game. I will do everything in my power to make sure we don't lose. You will talk about how Stuart Skinner, who got pulled for Calvin Pickard, who is not a starting goalie in the NHL in the last round, staved off a Dallas team with some of the best shot metrics we've ever seen in the shot tracking era. All of that against the backdrop of not having been to the Stanley Cup Final in 18 years. 18 years. Yeah. Math is hard, as you've often seen. If you watch on YouTube, which I highly encourage, you can often see the gears turning in my head as I do mental math, or if I'm reading off my note sheet, making sure the math adds up. Speaking of math, power play, once again, sublime. Penalty kill, once again, sublime. For the series, the Oilers went 4 for 11 on the power play after not scoring on the power play in games 1 through 4. Their penalty kill, 14 for 14. Including 3 kills tonight. Give credit where it's due. This series was very close. Dallas won the even strength goal scoring battle 13-12. The difference, 4 power play goals, 1 shorty. Thank you, Matthias Janmark. We will be back in the next segment, and we'll talk a little bit about the Cup Final in Florida. But revel in this. You have earned this, Oilers fans. Be right back. It is winner take all time here in the National Hockey League, where the Edmonton Oilers will take on the Florida Panthers. We've got some interesting stuff in here. 2014 draft, all first 4 picks are in this series. Over in the NBA, we got the Mavericks and the Celtics. Kyrie Irving going back to Boston. If you're in on the drama like me, this is the best time of year. And if you want to get in on the action and give you a chance to win big, you got to go see our friends over at FanDuel right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. thank you to everybody who is making Locked On Oilers a part of your day. This playoff run has been a lot of fun. Being the underdog, and I know a team with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl can beat anybody, but being the underdog, it's a fun feeling. Nobody is going to pick the Oilers to win this round. Nobody in the gambling community, nobody in the analytics community. The old heads, the Mark Messiers of the world, the Wayne Gretzky's of the world, the guys who played might skew towards the Oilers, but most of the modern conversation drivers, the people who are well-versed in the trends of the game and the styles of the game, people like Mike Kelly, you're going to pick the Florida Panthers in this series because they're probably going to have the puck a lot more, and that means more work for Stuart Skinner. When Stuart Skinner has to make a lot of work, historically, that's been difficult, but that's neither here nor there. We are talking about this team, this moment, and just savoring it because you don't get here that often. You do not get here that often. You look around this league, the amount of teams who haven't been to the Cup Final this century, not just like won a Stanley Cup, just been to the Cup Final. Carolina hasn't been to a Cup Final since they won it against Edmonton in 2006. The Rangers have not been there since 2014. The Devils have not been there since 2012. The Blue Jackets have never been there. The Bruins haven't been there since 2019. You go down the list. Buffalo has not been there since the late 90s. Toronto has not been there since the 90s, I think. I could be wrong on the Leafs. I have to fact check that one. I could be wrong about that. Calgary has not been there since 2004. Vancouver has not been there since 2011 when they lost to the Bruins. The Senators have not been there since they played the Ducks. That was during the George Bush presidency as well. You go up and down the list. Montreal made it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but that barely counts because that season was Fugazi. You go down the list of teams who haven't been here. You understand how hard it is. And I think that's what I've gained the greatest appreciation and understanding for as I've gotten older as a sports fan. You understand how difficult it is to make this stuff happen. Just to make it to the Stanley Cup Final is an improbability. To win the Stanley Cup Final is an even greater improbability. You talk about what it takes to get here, and the Oilers have captured something truly special. They have gotten contributions from guys all over the place. Ryan McLeod had a goal in this series. Connor Brown has a playoff goal. Corey Perry coming back into the lineup after 2 weeks of sitting in the press box, making a very tangible impact. Left the game tonight and came back in. Philip Broberg sitting around waiting for his opportunity to get back in. Calvin Pickard, who hadn't played since the end of the regular season when he got in a game where they didn't want to play Skinner. You can go up and down the list. We can talk about Sam Carrick. We can talk about Adam Henrique. It takes everybody this time of year. Hell, even Cody Ceci. Tonight in this game, there was a sequence where Dallas had the puck in the zone for close to 2 full minutes. Cody Ceci, by God, found a way to clear the zone without icing the puck so the Oilers could change. Kudos. When you have guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman and Evan Bouchard who do not shy away from the responsibility and the burden of being great, you have an opportunity to win any night. And I know the Oilers have had some solid regular seasons during the McDavid-Draisaitl era. Coming into the regular season, I felt this was the deepest Oilers team they've had in his tenure. I felt a lot of the conversations around the team after they were down in the first round. They lost game 2 to LA, the one in overtime, 6-5, 5-4. I forget what the final was. After that game, there was a lot of, well, this Oilers team's not really that good. Last round, being down 3-2 to Arthur Shelov's. A lot of people saying, well, Edmonton's not that good. Come on, you can't take them seriously. They found a way. Is it always pretty? No. Is this how you would draw it up if you were going to be a coach and say our recipe for success? No. Would you want to play defense for 45 minutes? No. Would you want your season to hinge? I shouldn't say your season. Would you want clinching your first Stanley Cup final appearance in 18 years? God, I can't do math. Your first Stanley Cup final appearance in 18 years, hinging on if Stuart Skinner can make 40-something saves? No, you would not. But they did. Trying to do one-size-fits-all analysis when we're talking about the high variance that is the playoffs is foolhardy. Sure, there are some things that translate no matter what game you're in, no matter what time of year it is, but anything can happen in one individual game. That is why we play the games. If statistics alone were enough, we would not need to play the games. We would all be a lot more well-versed in Excel as opposed to gathering around televisions and phones and computers and iPads and Amazon Kindles or whatever else you want to use to watch hockey nowadays. But man, savor it. I can say it. I worry the Rangers are never going to make a Stanley Cup final again and have the chance. I do, genuinely. I'm 27 years old. I've seen it happen one time. Savor this moment. I'm sure there are people listening to this podcast who were not alive when the Oilers made the Stanley Cup final in 2006. Appreciate this moment. Yes, of course, we want to win the Stanley Cup. That's the goal. They win this Stanley Cup. There's no more, what if he won? There is no more, well, he's got to accomplish more. Because Canada's going to go to the Olympics in 2 years. Connor McDavid's going to win a gold medal playing with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. He gets that. He gets Lord Stanley. He is in the pantheon. He is in that inner ring with Gretzky, with Orr, with Sidney Crosby, with Lemieux. McDavid is going to be a man possessed. He understands this moment, and the way he played in Game 6 tonight tells me how important this is to him. And that sounds like a cop-out. That is the type of analysis I typically shy away from because it's rooted in, well, if he was really a great player, he would have done something, totally ignoring the fact there's another team on the ice and that they have a say in the outcome of a game. But when Connor McDavid is playing like a man possessed, there is not anything any team on this planet can do to stop him. Bask in this. Savor this. It is not easy to get here. We have a whole week. The Stanley Cup Final does not begin until Saturday down in Sunrise, Florida. We have a whole lot to break down before we get there. Until then, let's go Oilers.